What is going on, you guys? Welcome back, or welcome to ToyShopFab. Today we're going to be making this 87 Chevy Squarebody even cooler by installing a transmission cooler. Because we all know heat kills transmissions, and well, I rebuilt this not that long ago, and I am just not ready to rebuild it again. So we're going to try and save it. Make it last a little bit longer. All right, transmission cooler we are installing is a TransSaver Plus transmission cooler. Here's the part number right there. I'll also put a link to this in the description. And if you haven't guessed it already, yes, got it off eBay. So this thing should help keep this truck running, this transmission a little bit cooler. Right now it runs to the factory location. It comes off the transmission straight into the radiator. And if I've learned anything at all by that white truck out there is, well, if you can get it out of the radiator and give it its own personal cooler, do that. It definitely helps. Let's see here. This thing says it protects against burnout and boil over. Installs in approximately 30 minutes. Maybe once you get everything else out of the way. Doubles oil and equipment life. I sure hope so, because oil is expensive. Eliminates costly repairs. Which means this thing will never ever break down again. I agree with 2 out of 4 of these, but it'll help prolong costly repairs. It'll definitely help cooling the transmission fluid down. Will definitely help this thing last much longer. It'll keep that transmission very happy for a long time to come. And of course, changing fluids, keeping up on the maintenance, you know, not letting it go for 140,000 miles without a anyways, kit comes with these little guys here. Poke through your radiator. It's got a couple of little rubber or foam isolators to fit between the transmission cooler and, well, it's going to be the condenser on this one. It's got hose clamps, so that'll work. We're definitely using those. Comes with at least 3 feet of hose. Well, let's see. 3.5 feet. Let's go 3.5 feet, okay? We got or just under 4.5 feet of rubber line. That should be plenty to help to go into the end of the factory steel lines there and run over to our cooler. So that's awesome. The little thing down here also has hose clamps for our hose. And here, grab it out of the box, is our transmission cooler. Now this guy here, grab my tape measure. Sure, if I looked hard enough, I'll find the measurements on the box, but you know what? Let's do it in real life. So this little guy here is about, where are you? There you go. 1 foot, so 12 inches by 10 inches is our core overall length. From the end of the loop to our inlet is 16 inches. So 12 by 10 core, 16 from end to end. Should be plenty of room. It's 3/4 of an inch thick, so should definitely have no problem fitting behind our little brace in there. So now that we've gone over all that, go ahead and get you over here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off our radiator shroud. All right, so a couple of the bolts in this are probably not going to be the same as yours, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you anyways. This radiator is slightly shorter than the factory one. I actually had to cut and re-weld the brackets to hold the radiator in a lower spot, and just use some 3/4 by 1 inch, or no, 3/4 wide by 2 inch long pieces of flat steel to make bars, brackets. Get here, I'll show you right here to hold my factory fan shroud in place. So I'm going to tell you that these ones for you up here, because these are the factory ones, are 1/2 inch. There's it right here. But mine are 7/16, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that. But the ones that are probably going to be the same for you are the ones that are holding the two halves together, and that is a 7mm. So pull the, and there's 2 on each side. Once you get those 2 off, get the bolts out of this guy here. I should be able to pull the top half of this shroud out, which is going to make it easier for me to get to the other side when we use our little poke through holders. So let's get that guy off real quick. Now there should be 4 holding this thing together, but I already looked on the other side. I've only got 3, but pretty sure it had 4 when I began. But 3 out of 4 is still a passing grade. I will have to try to find another one though when I go to put this thing back together. So got those guys out. Go ahead and switch over to our 7/16. Woohoo. Good. All right, get those guys out of the way. So our fan shroud should now come off. Yep, perfect. So now we got that out of the way. Go ahead and switch over to the grill. All right, now let's take this grill off. Now this, I don't know if you guys can tell, is not a factory grill. This is aftermarket. And it gets, well, it's still held in by Phillips screws, of course. I got a couple up on top and a couple down in the sides. But the 2 down here are, there we go, 1 behind the headlight bezel. So we're going to have to get those out. And I can tell you what those are. Those are a T15 Torx. If you want to get those headlight bezels out of the way. This grill is held in by Phillips screws. I'm pretty sure the factory one's held in by Phillips screws as well, but let me know down there in the comments if that's exactly what the factory ones are held in by. Now, I'm missing a screw on this end, believe it or not. So I'm going to go ahead and just take out this driver's side one here, and we got 2 T15 Torx on the bottom. And those you can see get from the outside of the truck. And then you have the other two T15 Torx are up on top of the radiator support here, which is good because it means you have to get the hood open to get these 2 top ones. So hopefully that deters people from stealing headlight bezels. All right, got that guy out of the way. Now let's go ahead, grab my screwdriver. I got 1 Phillips screw right here. in the corner. Here we go. All right. Grill is out. And I apparently at one point in time used bolts as, oh yeah, the spacer between the grill and this guy up here. So I remember now. Drop the other one. All right, now that we got the grill out of the truck, next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull the 1/2-inch bolts out of these two top radiator brackets. Not something I intended on doing at first, but now that I have been looking at it, it's probably going to be easier to get these out of the way. Let me lay the radiator back just a little bit so I can get my hand in there and cut the ends off the our little cooler zip ties or whatever they're called. Otherwise, they go through the condenser and the radiator, and there is about a 2-inch gap between those two, and I don't know how well that'll work out. So go ahead and just pull these brackets. Get a little movement on that. Oh yeah, plenty of room. Get my hand in there to cut those ties. So now that that is in place, go ahead and drop my bolts. So now we got the grill out. Radiator, top of the radiator is undone to move that forward, which is going to be awesome. So now I got plenty of room. Next thing I'm going to do, go ahead and get our lines out of the radiator. Now I recommend when you do that, these particular ones here are a 1/2-inch, and I recommend using a line wrench to do so. A line wrench will grab, as you can see, 1, 2, 3. There's a half a side, there's a half a side. So 4 points, 1, 2, 3 of our flare nut there, which is a lot better than the 2 of a regular wrench. Now, a regular wrench would work, especially if it's not corroded or it hasn't been a long time since it's been undone. But I think the only time these transmission lines were undone off this radiator is when I put the engine in, I want to say 10 plus years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and use a line wrench to break them. Now we're totally just getting rid of the whole cooler in the radiator altogether, so I'm going to undo both lines. Now come over here to the passenger side of the truck. Oh yeah. So top one broke loose, which is good news. Now also too, if you don't want to make a mess, which I don't want to right now, grab a drain pan or a bucket or a cup, maybe even paper towels to put underneath these lines, because the top one is not going to leak so much, but the second you get that bottom one undone, whew, she's going to make a mess. And if you got a nice driveway, this is, well, you're going to spend your time cleaning it up. So, all right, both fittings came undone. Now I'm going to go ahead and once these are undone, I'm just going to kind of move them over to the side, make some room for our rubber hose. All right, get you guys moved over here. All right, lines are undone from the radiator. So now let's go ahead and test fit our little cooler right up here against the condenser. Oh yeah, definitely just enough room to put that guy through. Now I'm going to probably put it, just kind of center it in between the, make it center on the condenser. There we go. Yeah. Oh, and just enough room to make sure to get our little tie downs on there, our little hold down. So right there looks like it's going to be good. Go ahead and grab a couple of those guys real quick. Well, and if you're wondering, we're just a hair under 15 minutes now. Nope, just over 15 minutes so far into this installation. So maybe. All right. Grab our little cooler here. And what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead, put that guy right up underneath that. So we're going to put these guys, these little foam guys here, we're going to put them in between our transmission cooler and our condenser. That way the two don't rub each other per se. All right. Kind of help protect both of them. Just something you want to do. You don't want the two rubbing in because you don't want to wear through your condenser, especially if your AC still works, because that would not be good. And you don't want to wear through your transmission cooler, because that would not be great either. All right, so we got that guy. Go ahead and put him here. All right, so all four of our little ties are in there. Transmission cooler is mounted to the front of our condenser. Now, I'm going to go ahead, take our hose, grab one of our hose clamps, put it over the ends of our cooler because, well, I don't want to forget to put our hose on. Go ahead and run this through the little gap that we have between the cooler, or the AC condenser, and our radiator support. Bring him through the front here. Put it. Boom. Make sure we measure out where we want. And grab ourselves a razor blade, which I do not have with me. Oh, but I do have one close. All right, so go ahead and mark this here where our cooler's at. Go ahead and cut it with our razor blade. All right. Slide our hose over the cooler. Now we didn't put our little retainers on the backside, so you can pull the cooler out far enough to go ahead and work the hose on. All right, now that we got the little zip tie or hoses attached to our cooler up front, got them pushed through and our little keepers in place, I am going to go ahead and now bring the radiator back. Make sure we got all the slack of our rubber hose out up in front. Go ahead and put our brackets back on. So we get our radiator secured back in place. So far, as of right now, we are 31 minutes into our job. So I can see 30 minutes being actually kind of a realistic number now. but I would honestly say an hour. Give you time to move things around, kind of figure out exactly how you want it. You know, make it yours. Woo-hoo. All right, radiator's back in place. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and get our hose clamps, because I do not want to forget to put those on. Now you could, if you wanted, cut the ends off your lines coming from the transmission and then pull the nut off and reflare it, but truthfully it's not really going to hurt anything if you don't cut it. You can just slide your hose over the flare there, and that is actually good enough, truthfully, to hold that on. And for any reason whatsoever, say you have a failure in this cooler or a hose pops off or something, you're not hunting for fittings to put back in the radiator, so that's saying that you're going to have a failure. And really, I hope nobody does. But just in case, you know, they always say it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So for any reason you have a failure in a hose or a line, you can always go back to the radiator. And that's my story. So got plenty of room up front here. Go ahead, bring our hose up to our transmission line, our existing line. Figure out exactly how much rubber line I want. Cut the excess off. So 4 feet of rubber line in the kit so far is more than enough to do the job. And you can always just put the extra in your toolbox. Of course you would, because hose is expensive. All right, so we got the top one measured and cut. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure the bottom one. Get that guy going. All right. All right. Top and bottom lines are cut. Now I'm going to start with the bottom line because that is the hardest one to get to. And I always like starting with the harder things first, unless I don't. And then I just start with the easy ones. If that makes any sense to anybody. Now the cool thing is these lines have already had transmission fluid going through them. So the ends are kind of lubed up already. Okay. Top and bottom lines are on. Go ahead and put this guy back in place. And put our radiator shroud back on. All right, transmission cooler is installed. Got our grill back on, got our headlight bezels back in place, and look, can't even tell there's a transmission cooler back there because we rebuilt the front end. Made it all one color. It's hidden, but transmission cooler's in, and easy, everything's back together, fan shroud, all that stuff. Now I did tell you guys I'm going to show you what the lines on the back side here. Now, as you can see, our line runs from up front of our AC condenser And then comes around through that slot in our radiator support, around our radiator tank there, and into our factory lines. Now, if you're wondering if these are tight or if I pulled them really tight, nope. They're relaxed. I did not want to pull any excess tension on them. You can see I took our original nuts, ran them all the way up against the bend, then slid our hose on, tightened the hose clamps. Now, the reason for me doing that is because this is an old beat up truck, and for any reason I get a hole in the hose or that transmission cooler, I can at least take those lines, put them back in the radiator, get me off the road, or get me to the next town. Now you can cut the ends of those lines off, pull the nuts off, flare them, and do that as well. Or come up with a whole other different kind of transmission cooler and lines like I did on my other vehicles. But that is going to work out just fine. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to go ahead and start the truck up, do a quick check, make sure there's no leaks. Now, I do not have a trans gauge or trans temperature gauge on this truck. I have never have actually, but I do have this guy, and I do know these things run pretty hot, especially when it runs just to the radiator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this here at the house. We're going to go on a quick test drive down the street, up and around, come back, and then we'll put that on the pan and see what the temperature of the pan is. See how well this transmission cooler works, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it works like the one we put in that white truck over there, because after taking it out of the radiator and putting it up front, that made a world of difference. So, like I said, let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Check for leaks real quick. Then let's get on the road. Screaming at me. All right. Nice and dry. Nice and dry. Nice and dry. We are good to go. So, got no leaks. Everything looks like it's doing good. Let's see the temperature of our pan right now before we leave. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that transmission pan says 89.2, 0.6, 0.9, 90. So we got 9 degrees in the pan. So now I'm going to leave this guy right here. We're going to go for a quick little drive. And well, see how that transmission holds up. Here we go. We are back at the shop after our little test drive. Got our gun. Let's see what this transmission pan says. So, transmission pan says 112. Let's see back here. 117, 135, 147, 144, 46. Torque converter says 194. And we're gonna go ahead and let's add 15 degrees to that. So 194, 200, 210, which is not that far out of the realm of possibility. So I think that's actually pretty good. I think it'll do a lot better once it's up on in the highway there on the freeway, where it gets a lot more air being pulled across that thing. But I will tell you that after a drive like that, coming back, yeah, the pan would be a lot hotter just going towards the just coming out of the radiator. So that is a huge improvement on this truck. Should definitely help it last that much longer. And well, Seth got his permit, so Probably losing the truck sooner than I thought, and the last thing I want is for that poor little guy to be stranded on the side of the road driving this thing. So. Permits, right? All my kids are getting to be that age now. So, but that is going to be it for this one. I'm glad we got that done. I do have a couple little more things I want to do with that kid too in this truck. We got to get him driving it. Got to get him used to this thing. So, and I want it to be kind of reliable for him as well. So, but anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know what you think. Like I said too, I will put a link to that trans cooler in the description. But if you go on eBay and type in universal transmission coolers, they're going to come up with a lot. They're going to come up with that style there. They got the cool ones with the fans in case you mount that in a remote location where there isn't a whole lot of airflow. So, but get out there, work on your projects, have some fun. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.